we will, noting a quorum here in City Hall, we will go ahead and call the meeting to order. The date is Monday, December 1st, 2025. The time is 6:05 p.m. Councilor Singh, to begin the meeting, could I ask you to make a motion on our agenda?
Yes. Motion to amend and adopt the agenda as follows. Remove from the consent agenda item 5.6, designation of staff to issue municipal tickets, police, and place on the deliberative agenda as item 6.6 per City Council President Travers, per Councilor Grant.
Thank you, Councilor Singh. Is there a second to that? Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Absent any discussion on the motion, we will go to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are any opposed? That carries unanimously. I will note at the moment we are joined by Councilor Newbeeser online. Second item on our agenda is a planned executive session. City Attorney Brown, before turning to a motion on it, I know it is our practice to ask your office to provide some factual background to the extent you can about the reason for executive session this evening.
Thank you, Council President Travers. This is a planned executive session for the City Attorney's Office to answer or to provide legal advice in response to legal questions about the proposed overdose prevention center, and providing confidential legal advice is one basis for executive session in the open meeting law statute.
Thank you, City Attorney Brown. Councilor Singh, could I ask you for the first of a two-part motion on the executive session?
Yes, to make a specific finding that premature general public knowledge of confidential attorney-client communications made for the purposes of providing professional legal services to the City Council would clearly place the city at a substantial disadvantage by discussing privileged matters and attorney work product in public, and to...
Sorry, we'll pause there for a moment. Thank
Yep.
you. Is there a second to that first motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Schachter. Is there any discussion on that first motion? We will go to a vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are any opposed? That is unanimous. And now, Councilor Singh, could I turn to you for the second part of this motion?
To move into executive session based upon the foregoing specific finding pursuant to 1 VSA 313A1F to confer with the city attorney regarding funding under Act 178 for an overdose prevention center to include members of the city council, the city attorney and her staff, mayor and her staff, chief administrative officer and her staff, and the city's special advisor on the overdose prevention center, Teresa Vizina.
Thank you. Is there a second to that? Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. The council is now in executive session. We have public forums scheduled for a time certain of 6:30 p.m., and so we will work to be back no later than then. Thank you. All right, we will call the council back to order. Thank you for folks' patience. We are now out of executive session. The next item on our agenda is our public forum, which had been warned for a time certain of 6:30 p.m. It's now 6:39 p.m., and we will go ahead and open public forum. Per our standard practice and our rules, we will first hear from any Burlington residents here in City Hall who have signed up. We will then turn to Burlington residents online. At the moment, we have 2 Burlington residents signed up here in City Hall and 1 Burlington resident signed up online. As a reminder, in order to participate in public forum online, you need to have signed up at least an hour in advance of when public forum is warned. If you're here in City Hall, when I call your name, please come here to the table. The microphone this evening, you need to push the button on it, make sure the green light on the microphone is illuminated, and then go ahead and speak directly into the mic. If you're online, we will let you know once you have the opportunity to unmute yourself on Zoom. Both here in person and online, speakers will be provided 2 minutes for public forum. As is always the case, we ask that speakers please direct their comments to me as chair and not to any individuals. We ask that folks refrain from personalized attacks, particularly those that touch on any individual's protected characteristics. We also ask that comments refrain from being obscenely loud, to engage in other obscenities or hate, If I interrupt a speaker at any point in time, it will be to ask that they please continue in accordance with these rules as I've described them. If a speaker continues to violate these rules, I reserve the right to end public forum at that point in time. So with that, the two Burlington residents we have here in City Hall are Andrea Vietz and Nolan Rogers. And Andrea, we'll start with you whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. It's good to be here again. As director of the Heineberg Community Senior Center, I'm here in support of the proposed MOU between the city and the Senior Center to answer any questions you may have and to give you a brief update. Since CORE closed, we have had more than 40 new participants join the Heineberg, 80% of whom are Burlington residents. Of the 10 former CORE participants, all have come to the Heineberg at least a couple of times, some attend daily. With just 2 part-time staff, we are facing the necessity of hiring a program manager in order to keep the senior center running smoothly for our increasing number of participants. Funding provided through the MOU will be used for this purpose. Tomorrow will be the first meeting with REIB Director Kelly Perkins to discuss giving the Age Strong Burlington Plan a home within REIB. This offers positive growth potential for both the Age Strong Plan and REIB, together with the challenge of addressing staff time and priorities and the integration of older adults into our concepts of inclusion and belonging. A reminder that the percentage of Burlington's population aged 60 and older is almost exactly equal to the percentage of residents 18 and under. As a community, we place a high value on educating and caring for our youth, and rightly so. It is also important to value and care for our older residents who have contributed to the city's growth with decades of work, paying taxes, child raising, and volunteerism. In order to have the vibrant, healthy community we all want, it is essential for city government to address the needs of older adults together with community partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Our next speaker will be Nolan Rogers, who will be followed online by Sharon Busher.
Hello, my name's Nolan Rogers. I live in Ward 3. I just wanted to talk about 3 things that I think about in our city a lot. The first one is the vacant buildings ordinance, and I would love to have some kind of feedback as a resident that those ordinances are being enforced and maybe some idea of the revenue that comes in from that. Properties like the Simon's gas station and the Boves property on Pearl Street, those ones have been there for a long time, and we are in a housing crisis. We should probably treat it that way and penalize people who are leaving properties vacant, but they're not individuals. They are companies making a lot of money from our city, which is great, which is a great place. So if there's some way to get feedback as a resident, maybe it's in the financial report, maybe it's some other way, that would be great to know that we're fining people and they are paying the fines. That would be really cool. The other thing is that, the second thing that I wanted to talk about was that anytime we are taking on debt as a city, that is for maintenance purposes, like things for water or streets, things like that, electric department, that is subsidizing living in the city now, and that is being subsidized by people in the future taxpayers. So that's kind of admitting for maintenance that we haven't kept up with our maintenance budget. And the third thing I wanted to say is that for new projects, any projects that we contract out, it would be great to know that those projects are in good standing, pavements flat the next year out, and if not, if we could make sure the contractors have done due diligence, quality control, things like that. Some of these new projects are not really nice the year after they're done. Thanks.
Thank you. We will now turn online. If we could promote Sharon Busher, please. And Sharon, you should be able to go ahead and unmute.
Yes, I have. Thank you so much, President Travers. I want to speak about the parking ordinance on your deliberative agenda. I think the ordinance that came to you was strengthened by the City Council Ordinance Committee work, especially the section that requires payment of all outstanding parking fines. This makes it, in some cases, impossible for an individual to access their vehicle. The payment plan option added by the Ordinance Committee at least offers an option for those financially strapped, and that has been an issue for me from the get-go with this one aspect of the parking ordinance. The other aspect, which has not been addressed, is that this ordinance gives autonomy to the department, and the commission is not involved in some of the actions. Most of them I agree with. They make total sense. The one that I have issues with is the removal of parking. Removal of parking in a community is deserving of public input. Currently, the request goes before the DPW Commission, and the public has a chance to have members, their peers who serve on the commission, hear their concerns, their neighborhood concerns, or support of whatever is being proposed, and helps together collectively with the department and the commission to bring forward a resolution to the proposal. I feel that this is a really sad step. I feel there have been a lot of steps at the federal level, we know, at the state level also, and now at the local level of trying to streamline processes, but in the process, you exclude the residents who pay you to make the city livable and safe. And I'm frustrated with that aspect that is going on right now. The last thing in this ordinance has to do with
Sharon,
and
we
I
are,
see I'm out
sorry,
of
Sharon,
time.
we are at time, but if you could just wrap up.
Well, I was just going to say that there's no accountability if the department takes action and doesn't report that action to the commission in this ordinance. It just stays in place, and I really feel that that is a misstep. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The time is now 6:48 p.m., and we will go ahead and close public forum. The next item on our agenda is Mayor, General City Affairs. I will just mention before turning to you, Mayor, that we had warned our meeting as the full Board of Abatement of Taxes. And just to let folks know, after this agenda item, Mayor, we will turn to that meeting, and Councillor Kane, as Chair of our Tax Abatement Committee, will likely turn to you to lead that agenda. So, Mayor, we turn to you now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Travers. So a few updates from the administration for folks at home and the council. I want to start first by extending a big thank you to our Burlington Fire Department. As folks may have heard in their neighborhoods, there were 3 individual residential fires that displaced a number of residents, one in the East End, one in the Old North End, and one in the South End last week. And our team responded quickly, and we're able to, especially in the more dense areas, actually all 3 of these were in denser neighborhood areas, prevent further damage, and certainly other buildings from catching on fire. So just want to really appreciate all of the teams that responded to those fires, and hope that everyone who is displaced is able to find secure housing soon. I want to remind folks as we get towards the deadlines, there are 2 important surveys I've been talking about routinely in these updates. I want to make sure the public knows that the police chief survey, which is our attempt to get community input far and wide on what kind of candidate profile we want to put together for our next chief of police. That survey closes on December 5th, and then ICAP, who is our hired firm, will compile all the results and put together a draft proposal for consideration in my office. I will engage the council on that process as we get closer to posting and then recruiting, hopefully, some strong candidates to come to the city of Burlington. You can find that survey on the mayor website. We've also been doing our best to continue to push that out through social media and Front Porch Forum. The second survey, there's a topic tonight related to the overdose prevention centers. We have been putting out a community survey. That one closes on December 15th. That one you can also find on the mayor's website under our OPC information page. This is an attempt, again, to get community input on this critical program we're bringing online with our partners, VCJR. And again, there's an agenda item later on your agenda tonight, Council, that will talk a little bit more about this piece of our public health response. The next thing I want to mention is related to a couple of administrative things. Our human resources director hiring process is underway. We have about another week or so left for applications, and then we'll go immediately into interviews, including having a member from the city council as part of that interview committee. My goal is, again, to have a candidate for confirmation to you at your first January meeting. So this will, besides the chief of police, finish out all of the interim roles that we've been holding for department heads, and we'll finally have a permanent full team of department heads in the city, which will be an exciting milestone. The next piece I want to update with folks is that for the last several months, I've been holding a monthly press briefing on community safety to give folks insight into the many moving parts of our community safety strategy. We have decided to move that into more of a general city affairs standing press briefing. So starting next week, December 11th at 10:30, we'll continue to hold this as a monthly press briefing, but we'll expand the topics to more general city affairs, always commenting, of course, on community safety issues, but we have more things that are coming online now, including housing strategy and other items, and we want to make sure we use that format as a good platform to do some public education. I want to let folks know that we are underway with making sure we're prepared for opening an emergency cold weather shelter in the extreme circumstance where temperatures might dip to negative 10 degrees in the city. I really want to appreciate our emergency management director. Is that what Chief Curtin? I'm not going to look behind me. But anyway, Chief Curtin has the distinction of being our emergency response person for the city. And the council did approve a response, our emergency response plan back in May, and we've been implementing that. The addendum on there was specific to our emergency cold weather shelter procedures and policy. A CVOEO is the lead entity this year for operating the extreme cold weather shelter, and that MOU is being finalized now under Chief Curtin's leadership. Let's see, I want to just mention a couple more things and then do some community highlights. Tonight you also have legislative priorities on your agenda. One thing that's not included there that I want to bring the public's attention to is Burlington proudly allows non-citizens to vote in local matters, as does our neighboring community of Winooski and the state capital of Montpelier. And so what we are planning to do with cooperation of the mayors in Winooski and Montpelier and their clerks is to work towards, with state partners, on protecting the voter information that non-citizens' personal information from the voter file. Because the state does not have non-citizen voting on a statewide level, there's some vulnerabilities with that list, and we want to make sure in these times, especially with this federal government, that we're doing everything we can to protect this list, to encourage true democracy, and allow folks to have not fear of voting and engaging in the civic process because of a list that might be separated from another voter list. So more on that soon. I appreciate the mayors of Winooski and Montpelier being strong partners there. We will begin in January bargaining with our two other unions here in the city, AFSCME, that represents most of our city staff, and IBEW, who represents our Burlington Electric Department staff. And I look forward to some good, strong bargaining with both of those unions, and again, trying to work a similar timeline as we did with BPOA and BFFFA, which are our police and fire unions, where we worked really hard to come to an agreement on or around the expiration date of existing contracts, because that's an important, I think, sign of respect for our frontline workers, our unionized workers, and we'll have the same lens for which we'll approach that work come January. We are also been hard at work, of course, prepping the beginning stages of fiscal year 27's budget. Our goal continues to remain at the Board of Finance on December 15th to bring a very early outline of what that budget's shaping up to be. And so I want to appreciate the CAO Shad and her team at DFA for working diligently to prepare a lot of details for the Board of Finance information, but we'll be sharing that with the public as well. Finally, if you haven't been by the library, the windows are going in, and the restoration process for the historic portion of the library will be completed by mid-December, which is great for all of our young people whose youth library has had some boarded up windows as we replace some very old parts of that building. And I just appreciate everyone's patience as we bring that building online and then go to the next bigger level of the capital campaign for a bigger renovation project for the building with the Friends of Fletcher Free Library, who were here a couple meetings ago. That will be a much longer term project, but it's a good step in investing in our critical community center known as our Fletcher Free Library. I also want to let folks know the Miller Center in the New North End is now open on weekdays, evenings, and weekends, now that we have adequate staffing for that. And I also want to remind the counselors that our new director of our Parks, Recreation, and Waterfront Department started last week, Phil Lewis. So he's here, he's in Burlington, and he's getting right to work. One of our public comment folks would probably be interested in this next item. I don't want to call you out, Nolan, but just this might be interesting to you, Nolan. So for DPI, which is our Department of Permitting and Inspections, we'll be convening a cross-department meeting in the next week or so on vacant buildings specifically, how to reactivate them, how to look at our current strategies, how to pivot, and how to frankly be more strategic in our approach. I've learned from a few case studies through the Bloomberg Harvard Mayor's City Initiative, Leadership Initiative program of other communities who've literally been through this same scenario, and learning from there both trial and error around how do you focus on what yields you the best outcomes for reactivation of space and accountability. And then finally, from our RIB department, there is a joint effort between REIB and our Trusted Community Voices liaisons who are working on a food and clothing drive here at City Hall. There was information that went out today on their department newsletter for folks to look for more information. So just quickly, in terms of the community, a few updates. I hosted at City Hall last, maybe a little more than a week ago, a series of meetings with our youth at Burlington High School. I've met with a series of them as they graduate, new folks come in, which has been very exciting to meet with about a dozen BHS students on a whole host of issues. It started on community safety, but this last time they talked, it was fascinating. They were very interested in Great Street, Main Streets. They asked me all sorts of things around infrastructure in the city. It gives me great hope that the young people are actually paying attention to their municipal government and really had a lot to say around kind of what they're really looking forward to with the new building, of course, opening next fall. Over at our airport, we opened a multi-use path. So next time you're at the airport, across from the parking garage, we opened, as good partners with the city of South Burlington, a multi-use path for walking and biking and whatnot through that neighborhood. We were joined by members of the city council from South Burlington, and is appreciated as neighbors to that community. I met with Vermont Interfaith Action leaders and faith leaders locally here in Burlington. They raised concerns and wanted to work as partners on our continued work to respond to our unhoused crisis and homelessness in general. It was a great partnership, and I made sure to note to them the work we're trying to do legislatively, again, back to the legislative priorities. And they were appreciative of that because they do some advocacy work in the State House, and so continue to find partners to continue to speak from the same priorities will help us be more impactful in the State House. I also spoke at the Destination BTV Summit, which is a conglomeration of tourism industry folks, including the state of Vermont, but many of our folks in our business and tourism industry. Hello Burlington is part of this effort, and of course the local chamber. The room was full, and it was great to be able to engage with folks to talk about all the good things we are investing here in Burlington and the momentum that we're building, not only for the benefit of residents, but also for tourists as well. I did a ride-along, shout out again to the Burlington Fire Department about a week ago, and got to go on 2 calls, which was very insightful, including one at the 1 South Prospect Street. It's fascinating seeing a large building that has a fire alarm call, and just really appreciative again of the firefighters and their willingness to be to invite any of us, city officials, along to see what their firsthand and frontline work is like here in the city. I saw a handful of you at the AC Hotel opening, which is, there was a bar opening at the new Burlington Square Hotel, which is down on right off of Bank Street. So I appreciated seeing you all there. It was a good time to help celebrate and offer a warm welcome to this new entity downtown. Later that night, Burlington Electric Department and Vermont Gas hosted a 2030 district update with our partners from that organization. The city received an award and recognition for Kim Bleakley and her team's work for meeting our 2050 performance goals. 2030 district is around building energy reduction work and the use of fossil fuels to, of course, heat and cool buildings. And there was recognition specifically for our Burlington Police Department headquarters and our team's work to bring our energy performance of that building in line with what our goals are to be on track for 2050. For folks who were in town last week, we lit the tree at the head of Church Street. I was unable to be here. I was out of town with my family, but thank you to everyone who was part of that great way of bringing joy downtown, and specifically to Elise and Raymond Whitney of South Burlington who donated the tree. And I sent them a quick note because that's great when we can partner with our neighbors. And then coming up, a few quick things in case folks are interested. Burlington Electric Department is hosting its Net Zero Energy Annual Celebration for our fourth graders. So every elementary school has an opportunity to participate. Their fourth graders submit designs, artwork for the BED calendar. And we get to hand out those celebrations and celebrate with those fourth graders, their teachers, and their families this Wednesday. There'll be an annual public menorah lighting on Sunday, December 14th, which is the first night of Hanukkah, at 4 to 4:30, because it gets dark that early now, this time of year. Shabbat of Burlington will be hosting that, and I welcome folks to join me there. And as Andrea shared earlier, I'm giving all these specific call-outs, sorry. I'm violating our rules the other way, but Andrea knows that we'll have a senior holiday dinner on December 18th, hosted by the Old North End Good Deed Fund, Feeding Champlain Valley, the Heineberg Senior Center, and the Old North End Community Dinner. So I want to appreciate that collaboration to support our seniors. Finally, just a reminder, our marketplace is very active during the winter, so beyond small business Saturday, there's lots of ways to come downtown and support our local businesses. Our marketplace, Church Street Marketplace, of course, will be hosting yet again the holiday window contest, the North Pole mailboxes, which my kids love, direct mail to Santa, and the winter market in City Hall Park. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. As mentioned, we had warned our meeting as the full Board of Abatement of Taxes for 7 p.m. It's now 7:03 p.m., so we will briefly recess the City Council meeting and call to order at that time our meeting as the full Board of Abatement of Taxes. The first item on the agenda there is a motion to adopt our agenda. Councillor Kane, as Chair of our Tax Abatement Committee, could I ask you for a motion on the agenda?
I move to adopt the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Litwin. Seeing no discussion on that item, we will go to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. We have a consent agenda, and Councillor Kane, I'd welcome a motion to adopt our consent agenda.
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second to that? Is that you, Councillor Litwin? Great. Any discussion on the consent agenda? We will go to a vote then. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Or any opposed? That is unanimous. And then we have one deliberative item, and Councillor Kane, could I ask for a motion on the deliberative item?
Per the committee's recommendation, I move to grant the abatement request in the amount of $80.36.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Litwin. Is there any discussion on this motion or this item? We will go to a vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are any opposed? That carries unanimously. Seeing no other business before the full Board of Abatement of Taxes, and absent objection, I will adjourn that meeting at 7:04 p.m., and we will resume our City Council meeting. The next item there is our consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda and take the actions indicated?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Litwin. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Is there any discussion on that item? We will go to a vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are any opposed? That is unanimous, which now brings us to our deliberative agenda. The first item on our deliberative agenda is item 6.1, authorizing to sign a cooperation agreement with HowardCenter Inc. This is an item that was postponed from our last meeting. Mayor, I know that we received an initial presentation on this. I see that we're joined by Chief of Staff Aaron Jacobson again, who was here at our last meeting as well. Would be happy to turn the floor to you or to Chief of Staff Jacobson if you'd like the time to reintroduce the item. Otherwise, would then turn to the council for a motion on it.
We will have my Chief of Staff, Aaron Jacobson, bring us back up to date on where things were left off from the postponement of this item. And I just would like to publicly appreciate her leadership on this because it's been an important first-time way to codify our relationship with the Howard Center. And I just appreciate you, Aaron, for doing that.
Okay, you're welcome. And as well, Ingrid Jonas was very much a part of the effort behind the cooperation agreement, as were our partners at the Howard Center and our Burlington Police Department. So I won't take up too much more time on this matter because we talked about it a lot at the prior meeting, but since that meeting, I have provided an updated cooperative agreement that doesn't add a lot of additional language, doesn't change much really, but does underscore and provide some additional details about the data sharing that we feel is an important part of the partnership and important to memorialize in this agreement. So that's what you'll see in the newly updated agreement, and that language is in red. I know that since the prior meeting, Beth Holden of the Howard Center also sent some additional information to Council President Travers, and I imagine he shared that with you. So you should have that additional information. As well, I responded to those of you who emailed me with your support for this item and or any questions. And if I missed any questions from you all, I apologize. I'm certainly happy to try to answer those now. And otherwise, we're just asking for your support of this agreement.
Thank you very much. I think if a councilor was open to making the motion on this item, just to begin the discussion, I would be open to that. Councilor Bergman?
I'd move the approval. I don't have the magic words in front of me, so I would move the approval of this agreement, the updated agreement, which is on Civic Clerk, and take any other actions that are indicated on Civic Clerk.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Grant. Councilor Bergman, do you want the floor at this point in time, or we'll open it up otherwise?
I just want to thank you for making the updates. It's really clear that the conversation that we had was about two different things, and I think we made it clear, and I think this was important, is important to clarify where the data is going and get that whole process, because we need to do it all. So I really want to thank you for your leadership and your continued work on it. And this is really, I think, actually quite exciting and part of the continued improvement that I'm hearing people think is happening in the downtown and that I see as well. So thank you.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Is there any other councilor that wishes to be recognized? Councilor Carpenter, and then Grant.
Thanks. I'm very supportive of this. It's just more of a comment going into next year. This is money that's come out of our regional services budget. I know there's a charge to relook at that, and I just want to comment that I think certain grants like this, and like Heineberg, perhaps the OPC, need to be fit in a committee process kind of separate from the regional program. So, and I think we should think, and I'm going to ask the administration to think about whether some of these programs really should be in a department as opposed to the regional budget. You know, this one obviously ties the Howard contract very closely with public safety. Perhaps it should be there. And so I really want us to take the time in this budget year to look about some of these programs that I feel are critical. They're not one-off programs. Should be in a better place than just in the ozone over here. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Councilor Grant.
My first question you just answered by actually forwarding the document, which I am rapidly looking at. So okay, transition of individuals previously served by CARES. While Howard Center is not taking over the BTV CARES program or its services, Street Outreach will continue to serve community members through its current model, and in doing so will naturally help fill some gaps. So there's an acknowledgement of gaps there. I guess, I don't know if we need to add an additional line on the agreement. I guess my concern would be for what I would like the Public Safety Committee to receive is we obviously can't use names of individuals. But I believe these individuals need to be numbered, like in person 1, 2, 3, kind of in a similar way that Chief Burke tracks like the top 20. We don't know who those individuals are specifically, but he's monitoring the top 20. So I'd like to know that the individuals where there will be gaps because they aren't serving the same people, that they're looking at who CARES is serving that they're not currently serving, and really making sure none of these people fall through the cracks, because this does include people that previously they made the decision not to serve for a variety of reasons. So that is definitely information that I'll be looking for and I think members of the public safety and the rest of the council and the public will want to know. There are people in our community whose situations, for lack of a better word, have been stabilized. They've been put on the right direction. I will respond to something, too, that Chief Burke said. When we were just having a discussion about this at our last Public Safety Committee meeting, I didn't want to seem like a smart aleck. I don't know, but I can't win no matter what I do. But the idea that the value of transporting someone, because that was a concern of his, that individuals were being transported as if that wasn't a valuable service. And I think when you have someone who's monitoring an individual who has a wide variety of issues and has a wraparound treatment plan, and you want to make sure they're adhering to that plan, sometimes if they're not able to get to where they need to be, they may need to be transported. We all know the issues with our public transportation. We are all hearing complaints about the number 11 bus, for example. Sometimes people just need to be transported so that they get there and they don't fall out of their plan. It helps them to continue to work their plan. And we have to be willing to do that at times because there is always a cost to transport people. We could pay a cost through our fire department to pay them when they have to transport something, when the services may not be covered by insurance or Medicaid. There is a cost for our officers, our sworn officers, to transport people to jail, or the cost to transport people to court. Those are costs throughout the community response system. So if we can divert money to transport people to keep them on their treatment plan, that has immense value. Thank you.
Can I respond briefly?
Yeah, please.
I just want to add, I spoke with Howard Center today just to confirm that they will be sending me the data quarterly, which I will then share with the Public Safety Committee Chair, being you, Councilor Grant, and they are most happy to come to Public Safety Committee meetings quarterly following that data report and answer any such questions like you're asking. And they really have truly been willing partners on this. So I think if there's certain data you want, either from BPD or Howard, or connecting those dots between, you could certainly ask, and I think they'd be happy to answer those kinds of questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Grant. Is there any other councilor that wishes to be recognized on this item? Councilor Litwin.
Hi, Aaron. Thank you so much for responding back to me the other day. I read through all your responses, and they all make sense to me for the most part, so I really appreciate you taking the time. One of the concerns that still remains for me in the agreement is also around data and evaluation, because while I appreciate the response that you said that there'd be more data collected beyond what is mentioned here, the only reference that I see in the agreement is documenting interactions to track, quote, chronic homelessness, but I'm not seeing metrics that really help us assess the efficacy of the investment. So I appreciate the documentation metrics in terms of the interaction numbers, but that doesn't, I don't see how that helps us assess or track chronic homelessness, but also we're gonna have to evaluate the efficacy of the investment in for the FY27 budget. And so I'm just wondering what other data or KPIs do they have that they're gonna be able, that either the Public Safety Committee is gonna get or the council's gonna get, so that we can make an informed budgetary decision when we have to do that.
Well, the specific data that they're going to be providing the city is laid out in the agreement, both in terms of the language I added on page 10 and then an entire page listing additional data in attachment 2. How Howard Center then addresses how they are tracking chronic homelessness is a question for Howard Center, but certainly many of these data points would go to that. And I do just want to remind ourselves that Howard Center street outreach team itself their goal isn't simply to track chronic homelessness, but to respond in the immediate to mental health crises that folks are experiencing on our streets. So that's the efficacy I will be wondering about as well.
Okay, thanks a lot. And then I think the last question I have is about timeline for kind of the budgeting. So one of the things that stuck out to me, which you thankfully followed up with the Howard Center on, and I appreciate that, was around the aggregation issue. So basically the $250,000 gets us 1.96 FTEs plus, other costs associated with the program. However, if they lose funding sources, then we have to know what that reaggregated capacity is going to be. And I'm wondering when they find out from their other sources that you got an email from them today or the other day, DSU and VDH and those folks, like what is their grant timeline so that we would have that information in time for we used to call it the Marvelous Nights of May, but I don't think we call it that anymore. So
marvelous.
Yes. So in terms of May, because I don't think the state is on that same timeline.
Well, to your question about the current fiscal year, okay, so Howard Center did respond, as I understood it to be, that their current funding is secure. So there's no
I'm more
questions
thinking FY27.
about this allocation. And then for next year's request from Howard Center, we will begin talking about that with them very soon, as we did last year at this time. And of course, as with all nonprofits who are grant funded by the feds, funded by the state and others, you're doing your best guess based on prior years and assurances from your funders. Certainly, Howard Center provided us a budget that then helped us helped inform us about what we thought that we could contribute, and they'll do that again this year. And the data they provided us, the budget they provided us, was accurate. So I don't have any reason to worry about that.
Okay, thanks for answering the questions. I'm all set.
Thank you, Councillor Litwin. Does any other councillor wish to be recognized on this item? All right, seeing none. Councillor Schachter, go ahead.
Sorry, just quickly, thank you for all your work on this. And I just want to echo, I think it's important what Councillor Grant was speaking to, that I know that the BTV Cares conversation is separate from this contract. I think given that I think it's more explicit tonight than I think it was when we last met, that there really is separate bodies of work, and that it's not that the BTV Cares work is being absorbed by the Howard Center programs that we already are working with. So I do just want to reiterate that I think it's really important that we be tracking those gaps, what they are, so that we can be continuing to iterate. I mean, I think I heard that one of the primary arguments was concerns over duplication, and I think it's clear there probably isn't total duplication, and so I just want to reiterate how important I think it is, separate from this contract, that we don't lose that important part of this conversation.
You got it. Agree.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Schachter. Anyone else? Okay, we will go to a vote then. All in favor of the motion made by Councillor Bergman, please say aye.
Aye.
Are any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you, Chief of Staff Jacobson. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to our partners at the Howard Center as well. The next item is item 6.2. This is a proposed ordinance amendment regarding parking enforcement. Councillor Bergman, as chair of our ordinance committee, would I turn to you to introduce the item and for a motion on it?
Certainly. I'd move to waive and approve the second reading of the proposed ordinance amending chapters 20 and 27 of the Burlington Code of Ordinances, and then to refer provisions of the ordinance regarding noticing of temporary parking restrictions back to the ordinance committee for review, and then for the ordinance committee to be able to report back concerning any further recommended actions, and to have the floor back after the second.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Councillor Bergman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and I'll note that Attorney Ramakrishnan is here to answer questions, but I told him maybe I can handle this possibly confusing but actually fairly simple action that we've taken. Let me just say that this is a fairly long ordinance, 10 pages that came to us, I believe it is, and yes, 10 pages. And it took us 3 full meetings. And I apologize to my colleagues on the committee for the nits that I picked in this. But I think that at the end of the day, we did a really good job of clarifying and tightening things up. And to the extent to which it summarizes and captures everything that we did and that's being proposed, the memo from staff is very, very good. So I thank Attorney Ramakrishnan for that memo and his work in the committee, and Laura and Jackie for their presence and their input in it. I need to note, and I'm going to first note this and then circle back. And President Travers, I'm sorry, but there's a bit of complication, and so I might run long just in terms of the explanation of this, so I hope that
Understood.
I can get it. Thank you. We reported out a version of the ordinance that on lines 113 and 114, on either the redlined or the part that is going to, is the ordinance, the unmarked up ordinance, that we approved a provision on notice and the placement of meter hoods that staff found a sort of a fatal flaw in that. And they found that fatal flaw in terms of the timing and the way that operationally it would work. And they reached out, and rather than trying to set up a whole committee meeting again and trying to work through that process, we've placed this on the agenda right now with that part stricken. And that's the second part of the motion that I've got here, to send it back, that particular aspect back to our committee to work on. And I would just say that this is on the agenda for this Friday's ordinance committee meeting, and I'm really hoping that we will resolve it on Friday and it will be back here on the 15th. So that's an area which is, there is a distinction between what the ordinance committee reported back and what staff caught and what we're voting on now. So it's not lost, but I want to take full responsibility. The committee did not sort of see that, but will see that this Friday. I need to walk through a couple of items here that particularly were brought up by former Councillor Busher. I should start calling her former Council President Busher, because she was the president at one point as well. But she actually was very present at all of our meetings and was very helpful to me in terms of the way that I was looking at things and some of the nits that I picked out. But I have to say that I believe that she is incorrect in her critique of the three things that she pointed out as a problem. And I want to thank her for acknowledging the positive work that we did around the one thing that she did highlight, which was the payment plans. So I'm glad that we're in alignment with that. But the first thing that she complained about was that we're removing public input on the removal of parking. And that is just, it's just not correct. There are two safety provisions or guardrails that really hem in this. All of the changes that we've made to delegate to the department are based on a predicate of finding, and I just gotta pull this up here, a couple of things, right? This is the first guardrail. The first guardrail relates to one that the public is asking for a change, and this is, say, on new parking, but it also includes the new accessible spaces, the new school zones, the prohibiting right-hand turns against a traffic signal, and new crossing guard locations. And what is required for action to be taken before the commission formalizes it is that the change has been requested and is necessary to respond to a request from the public, or there is some data that supports it. That's a part of the guardrail. And the second and really very critical thing is that it's inconsistent. The existing rule that we have is inconsistent with, I'm just going to read these, regulations or safety guidelines published by the Access Board, the U.S. Access Board, the Federal Highway Administration, the Vermont Agency of Transportation, or the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. So there's got to be some sort of rule that says that's different, is contradictory than the rule that we're following that has set this thing up. And if there isn't, then we don't get to change it just in this fashion. You got to go through a whole regular process. So that's sort of the first side of the guardrails. And the second one, and this goes to her third point, is that there's got to be a prompt notification to the commission. And if there is not a prompt notification to the commission, then it is going to be, it's not effective. So that's what the accountability is. And so what the language on lines 49 and 50 say that the rules that the department sets out will remain in effect, and here's the magic words, provided that the notification is sent to the Traffic Commission within its next 2 regularly scheduled meetings. And the reason it's not the next one is because the timing might not work in terms of when something comes up and they're dealing with it, like a crossing guard or a school zone. We had that. That was one of the issues that was brought to us. And when the commission is meeting and its notification and the warning of that. So there's the fail-safe for it. And then the commission gets to deal with it quickly. So the public can be talking about this, can be complaining about it. I mean, that's the assumption that I'm making in terms of the implication for what Councillor Busher was talking about in terms of public input. So there are the guardrails that really do keep the public absolutely involved, but this is about being able to do the right thing in a very technical way when the technical requirements require that it be done. And it makes, to me, perfect sense that we go and do that. So this is a streamlining. She says it just streamlines. That was a criticism that she made. But this is actually not a streamlining. It is, and unless it's in a very narrow set of circumstances that require actually streamlining. And for me, who worked as a legal mechanic for this city for 20 years, it's really important that we do things efficiently and effectively and, when necessary, quickly. And there are times that you've got to create these systems that allow us to do that. This is one of them. We tried, as the memo said, to really deal with a host of other things, including the notification provisions, so that people were warned, that the language itself matched up with the law and the necessities of it. And I will not bore you with a bloody line by line, only to say I, again, want to thank my committee and staff for the work that we did. This is an example of the nitty-gritty of the workings of city government that's absolutely essential and is time-consuming. And if we do it right, we get to have a good working city. And I think that we're doing it right here. So thank you. I hope you'll support it.
Thank you, Councillor Bergman. How'd Councillor Bergman do, Attorney Ramakrishnan? Good from your perspective? Anything that you wanted to add?
Wonderfully. I have nothing to add.
Okay,
Happy
great.
to answer questions, though.
Okay. Well, and thank you, Councillor Bergman, to you and to the other members of the Ordinance Committee, as well as to city staff, including, I would say most importantly, as a past chair of the Ordinance Committee, members of the City Attorney's Office. I know we've kept your committee very busy, and I appreciate the diligence with which you've been bringing items back to the council. So thank you very much. Is there any other councillor that wishes to be recognized on this item? Okay. We will try going to a vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are any opposed? That carries unanimously. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Attorney Ramakrishnan. Okay, we'll turn now to item 6.3. This is a item asking for authorization to execute a cooperative agreement with the Heineberg Senior Center. Mara, this is an item that, again, is coming from your office and would welcome your introducing the item.
Well, as I speak slowly, my chief of staff hopefully is walking behind me to the small table again, and there she is again. Again, appreciation to Erin Jacobson for her leadership on this MOU, also a first-time agreement with our partners at the Heineberg Senior Center. I'm sure Erin's about to invite Andrea up to the table, which I will go ahead and do on your behalf, Erin. So if you'd like to join us, Andrea, please do at the table, and I will pass it over to Erin and Andrea to just give a high-level overview of this new MOU. I don't think that's on, Erin. There you go.
There it is. Hello. Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining me at the table. Just a very quick background, as noted in the memo. This agreement follows the city's decision to sunset our Parks and Recreation's core program in the FY26 budget. And then what came after that were conversations around how we are going to help support the participants of that program continuing to get important services in the city. And that is when this council, other community members, certainly Andrea with the Heineberg Center, talked about how important it was that some services continue, and also that if Heineberg were to be the organization helping to provide the continuation, that we need to make sure we can support those services. With that, the city agreed in the FY26 budget to set aside an additional $50,000 to help support senior programming in the city, and we are proposing using some of that set-aside money to provide Heineberg with additional funding, as they are indeed providing some of these services to the folks who were core participants. Heineberg has provided us with some data showing the numbers of folks who are now attending Heineberg, who came from core to Heineberg, and so we do have some data that helped inform the agreement that we are asking for your support to allow us to finalize and then execute. And I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I think just any questions that people might have. I don't really need to add to that right now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Before turning to the council for any questions or comments, is there a councilor that would be willing to make the motion to take the actions indicated on civic clerk? Councilor Carpenter? So moved?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor McKnight. Councilor Carpenter, would you like the floor on this item first?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. I've been working on this, and obviously I'm very supportive of this particular contract. It's really quite modest in terms of the issues we had, the abruptness of the change, the need for some more immediate transition. And I just want to sort of call out that this is a real work in progress. The city, I don't have the exact number, saved, for lack of a better word, several $100,000 by eliminating the core. I think it's known that the core program was not as robust as it should have been. It needed to be repurposed and relooked at, and I think this is the year to do it. I just want us as a council to remember that we do need to robustly serve our senior citizens. Most senior centers in the state are strongly supported by cities. In our case, we've chosen to do an agreement with a private nonprofit, and which is actually to the city's benefit, I think, if you look at sort of the comparisons of what they can offer. But we really need to have a clear focus of how we're going to serve our seniors and get through this transition year. We need to grow the programs that we're doing. We can't look at this as we've lopped it off and then we stop. We've got to figure it out. So again, I see this as a modest step for a transition. It's not the end game at all. And I think this council hopefully supports that and understands that we really need to come back next fiscal year with maybe a stronger plan. And there should be an expectation that they will see that, and we will see that. And I do want to thank Andrea and Aaron for all their work. It's again been kind of a problem to solve without a home, landed on Aaron's lap. And I think we need to sort of fix that process as well. We can't ask our chief of staff to fix every wayward program that comes down our path. And they've done a great job. And again, I just want for this council to understand we've just got a lot more work to do. And hopefully this year with both a new parks director and an affiliation with RIB in terms of some of our engagement work, we'll have a better bench to deal with that. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Councilor Schachter?
Hi, I just wanted to pop in as well. I'm really grateful for Andrea, Aaron, Councilor Carpenter. I think I've been in a bunch of these meetings as well, and I want to express true gratitude for the way that Heineberg has stepped up to support our senior community. I think, it's just been really important and critical, and you've risen to the occasion, and I'm really happy that we've been able to bring this agreement forward tonight. It's long overdue. I'm glad it's retroactive. I just want to reiterate my commitment, and I know CDNR, which I serve on, will be taking this up as well, but just continuing to work on the Age Strong report, thinking about the next iteration of the Aging Council, where it can live, REIB taking it on. And I know a lot of this has been said, but I just want to reiterate my commitment to helping see that work forward. I think we have about a 6-month runway now till we're looking at, approving next year's budget. We're looking at it now. But I think there's a lot more work yet to be done, but this is a really positive step forward. And I just want to thank you again, Andrea, and your team for the ways that you've stepped forward. I think not only to meet the need, but to bring a lot of joy and connection and community. You've done just phenomenal work, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Schachter and Councilor Carpenter, for your work on this. And there is a lot of joy. I do want to really communicate to you that folks who are now coming to the Heineberg, who previously were being served by CORE, it was a transition, right? It's a much bigger program. There are more people coming and going. There are activities happening downstairs and upstairs at the same time. You have to choose whether you're going to do bone builders or bingo at the same time. And that's a really different kind of culture than there was at CORE. And I think some people felt a little bit nervous about coming into that environment. And I want to appreciate the volunteers and participants at the Heineberg who really made an intentional effort to make people feel welcome, to learn their names, to sit with them at the lunch table, to invite them to come to the Craft and Mend group or to Bone Builders. And I think at this point, 3 months in, I really see those folks feeling much more settled and having a lot of sense of, there's a word that I want that I'm not going to find, but control, self-control over what they're doing with their time there. And as I said in my 2 minutes, we also are seeing a tremendous number of new participants coming from all over the city. And I think that's going to continue to happen, and that is something that we'll need to be talking about as we are engaged with REIB and whatever other work group emerges. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Schachter. Is there any other councilor that wants to speak to this item? All right, we will go to a vote then. All in favor of the motion made by Councilor Carpenter, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous as well. So thank you again to Chief of Staff Jacobson and Andrea. Appreciate your being here. The next item on the agenda is item 6.4, authorization to execute a subrecipient agreement with Vermonters for Criminal Justice Reform, VCJR. On this item, I know that we're joined by Teresa Vazina as well as Attorney Ramakrishnan. Mayor, would your team, would Teresa like to present on this item
Teresa
first, or
will,
how would you like to move
Yep,
forward?
just briefly to give a high overview, and I also would like to publicly recognize and appreciate Teresa's leadership on this. She's been with the city for just about a year now and has really stewarded this forward with great care and professionalism and extreme expertise. We are in such good hands with Teresa's leadership here, with really breaking new important ground in our public health response here. So I just want to appreciate that. That's not filibustering to get you to the table. I just want to extend some gratitude. And then, of course, our legal team who's been supporting you in that process, Eric and Jessica, and many other partners, of course, as well. So Teresa, please take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all again and be in front of you tonight. I do want to just say, I realize I submitted the memo and the agreement at the start of the holiday week, and so I do recognize that, so I apologize in advance. I had hoped to get it to you on the 17th, but we had to move it to tonight, so I do appreciate your time reviewing the materials. As you all know, this is sort of the next natural step to, after having approved and accepted the state contract for the city in September and the approval of the project. I'm sorry, also, I'm getting over being ill, so I'm not 100% if I start coughing. The project proposal that you all approved in April. So I don't want to go too far because I know you've all had a chance to read the memo. What I do want to say is I want to thank all the counselors who I had the opportunity to speak with over this last week. It was so helpful to also learn some of the concerns that you all had, and we worked really hard today to try to address some of those. So I want to highlight some language changes that we were able to make and some additions to the original agreement that you saw last week. There was a concern about the access. So we went ahead and added some new language. So you'll see that in the updated motion language on Civic Clerk. I don't know if you all have had a chance to see that.
There's updated motion
on
language
there.
that's posted.
Okay.
Yes, along with the
I
memo
just wanted
and
to
the
make sure.
agreement. Yes.
Okay. And then in addition to that, I had a great conversation with you today, Becca. Thank you. There was not any spot where it was noted, would there be a city committee or board or commission or something here at the city where constituents and residents and business owners, anyone could bring possible concerns, questions about the operations of the OPC. And we know this is really important. And when I spoke with City Attorney, I call him City Attorney Eric, we talked about that and felt that the Board of Health would be a really wonderful committee for this to sit with. So I was able to speak to Celia today, and the Board of Health is really excited to be designated as that committee. That is also in the new motion language for you as well. So I just wanted to sort of highlight those two changes. I know there were some other things that I know that will come up that looking for some clarification on, but what I'd really love to do is kind of open it for you all to ask me questions. I know those things are going to come up, so hopefully I'm prepared to answer those for you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mayor, are we ready to turn to the council?
Yes, and just before we do that, I just want to acknowledge our partners are online. Teresa, I don't know if you want to introduce our partners from VCJR, but I appreciate you all being online as well. I didn't realize you were up there until your cameras went on. So these are our partners who are here. Tom Dalton, I can't read your little tiny, Tom is the executive director of VCJR, and Jess Kirby is, I'm forgetting your title, Jess, so forgive me, but they have been our strong partners from VCJR throughout all the steps of the way here. So thank you for being online.
Thank you, Mayor, and again, thank you, Teresa. I'll turn now to the council before any debate on the item for a motion.
May I make a motion for a recess briefly?
Okay, there's a motion on the floor from Councilor Litwin for a recess. For how long, Councilor Litwin?
I think only 5 minutes would be fine.
All right, 5 minutes. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilor Singh. If there's no discussion on the item, does anyone want to discuss the item? Yes, Councilor Grant.
Point of information, may we have the reason for the request for the recess?
Councilor Litwin.
Yeah, I'd just like to discuss the contract a little bit before I move forward with members of my caucus.
Okay. There is a motion for a 5-minute recess and a second. We will go to a vote on the motion. Yeah, we do have to vote on a motion for a recess. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
All right, given that Councillor Newbeezer is online and we have a divided vote, we will need a roll call vote on the item. So the clerk will please call the roll on a motion for a 5-minute recess.
Okay, so Lori's not here, sorry.
Oh,
We will, give us a second here.
I will just go around the table here and we will note it and we'll note it for the record. So we'll start, I'm not going to go in alphabetical order, so I'm just going to go in the order here. Councillor Newbeezer, could we turn to you first? This is on the question for a 5-minute recess.
Yes.
Councillor Litwin.
Yes.
Councillor Barlow.
Yes.
Councillor Schachter.
Yes.
Councillor Carpenter.
Yes.
Councillor Singh.
Yes.
Councillor McKnight.
Yes.
Councillor Kane.
Yes.
Councillor Broderick.
Yes.
Councillor Bergman. Councillor Grant.
No.
And as City Council President, Councillor Travers, I will vote yes. So with 11 yeses and 1 no, that motion carries. The council will be in recess for 5 minutes and will return to session at that time. Thank you. town meeting TV? Okay, great. So thank you for folks' patience. For the sake of the public, I will note that if you refresh the meeting agenda on Civic Clerk now, under this item, on item 6.4, there is slightly updated language that's labeled updated motion language under the recommended action on 6.4 as of 8 p.m. on December 1st, 2025. Councilor Bergman, my understanding is that you are prepared to move the updated language as of 8 p.m. This evening, and if that's the case, I would turn to you for a motion. I do know that it's lengthy, but you and I discussed in the interest of transparency, reading through the motion in its entirety, so thank you.
Yes, so I'm going to move again the language that in the recommended action is listed as updated motion language at 8 p.m. 12/1/25, and it reads, and the motion is as follows. 1, to authorize the mayor to execute the sub-recipient agreement with VCJR, subject to review and approval by the city attorney's office, and subject further to negotiation of a modification of section 4D to read substantially as follows. Subject to section 14A and all applicable laws, including any additional requirements of the guidelines and the pass-through requirements, providers shall provide reasonable access to the OPC to the mayor, the mayor's designee, and members of the city council upon request to determine compliance with this agreement under a policy to be developed in collaboration with the city pursuant to section 1N of the scope of work. The city shall provide no less than 48 hours prior notice to provider to access the OPC. The parties further acknowledge that any policies and procedures submitted to the city for review pursuant to section 1N of the scope of work will be delivered both to the mayor and or the mayor's designee and the city council. Number 2 of the motion, authorize the chief administrative officer to make all necessary amendments to the approved budget to reflect the execution of the sub-recipient agreement. Number 3, to designate the Board of Health to collaborate with the city and the OPC provider in developing a plan for addressing community concerns related to the OPC operated pursuant to the sub-recipient agreement in an advisory capacity to the city council.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Councilor McKnight. Councilor Bergman, would you like the floor on this item?
I think I'll wait and see what other people have to say and then see if there's anything necessary for me to say.
Sure. Does any other councilor want the floor on this item? Councilor McKnight. Councilor Carpenter, yes, you have a question? Okay, so we'll go Councilor McKnight and then Councilor Carpenter. Councilor McKnight.
Thank you. I'll just be very brief to give a little context about our discussion and the adjustment to this section of the contract, and thank you again for your partnership, Teresa, on this. We just wanted to make it a little clearer within this agreement that as co-equal branches of government, the council and the executive branch are all going to be subject to one policy in the event that a visit to the OPC is requested, and recognizing also that the details of that policy will come back before the council and, of course, the mayor's office for review once it's ready, which is kind of why we're doing this contract, so that details like this can be worked out and discussed. I think that covers this particular change, and I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McKnight. Councilor Carpenter?
Thank you. Just 2 questions. I had been an advocate of having a committee, and we've now put in the Board of Health, which I am very fine with. And I just want to call out, I'm assuming that that commission will be privy to the reporting that's provided to the city and whatever documentation we get. I don't think we need to express it, but I'm just calling out now that the presumption, since we've added them, that they would also be the recipient of whatever reporting and data collecting they have. The other question I had is somewhere in there, and I couldn't quite quickly find it, it says that VCJR will appoint an administrative body to oversee the operations. Can you just explain that a little, like who is that and what their role would be?
Yes, so the administrative body is actually the board of directors
Of
of VCJR,
Okay,
yes.
All right,
Yeah.
okay, that makes sense. It didn't say that explicitly.
Yep.
Thank you. And do you know, and I can ask offline, how they're an independent nonprofit? They have a process for electing board members, I assume, and?
Correct,
Okay.
yes. Yep. And you'll see in the operating guidelines, because this was written for any organization, right? So it sets that up if an organization didn't have their governing, practices in place, that is required.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Oh, I should just answer about what we would share with the Board of Health. And yes, all of the data that we'll be collecting and evaluation is going to be available through a public dashboard anyway. So lots of people have access to it.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Are there any other councilors that want to be recognized? Councilor Grant?
I just want to be on the record. The term reasonable, I know that there will be discussions about it and the policies that'll be put in place. But the term reasonable, like, how are we going to define that in an objective manner? So we'll have these policies. I just don't want to see us end up, especially when we've previously had an incident where the privacy of guests at a warming shelter, as well as some of the employees who had been working at the warming shelter, weren't respected. And so that'll have to be part of it, but we really need to think about what we mean as reasonable and what are the goals of why people would want to access that. Because I don't want to have people for lack of a better word, judged. Right? There's already so much misinformation around OPCs. And thank you for the work that you've done. The public forum that was held recently was extremely informative for a lot of people. Gotten great feedback on that from people who've watched that. But I don't want to see anything that's going to drive additional misinformation, disinformation that is being intentionally spread because they're afraid. There's a lot of fear in our community about it right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grant. I would actually like to just respond. When I read the language, it says that reasonable, that this request would be to ensure compliance. And I think that's a really important part of the language. It is my understanding of that language is that if somebody believes that there is a compliance issue, right? So I think that is part of it. The other part is that there will be guardrails in the policies that are created to protect people's confidentiality, HIPAA, and I think I really love the model that Rhode Island has, and they have very specific hours when they're not seeing participants and clients, that anybody can come for a tour. That would also be open to counselors, to the mayor, to anybody who would like, and they schedule those visits. You can come in, ask questions. That's a very different thing from this language. This language actually is saying to ensure compliance of the contract. So I think that's just something to point out in this particular thing. There will be other policies created around visits and tours for people. We are the third OPC in the country, and we're setting a standard for communities around the country and probably the world. So to have an open space for people to learn more and see the space and the work that we're doing, it's actually going to be really important. And we would love, once it's open, to make sure that we have that space for you all. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you for making those clarifications. I think it's really important that the public understand that because of the previous incident that we did have, and it was very difficult for a number of individuals.
Thank you. I have Councillor Barlow in the queue, and then Councillor Bergman.
And thank you for this, and thank you for being, or for everyone, for being accommodating of some of the changes we've asked for. You know, when some of us have been discussing this, it was the holiday week, and you know, in full disclosure, I didn't even look at the agreement till yesterday, and I know some other people didn't look at it until later as well. But I also understand the desire of folks to try to get something in place, because I think VCJR is operating without an agreement now. So I appreciate that as well. One of the things that's come up, and I haven't sent you these questions, so don't feel obligated to give me answers to them tonight, but I just wanted us to be thinking about it a little bit. So this agreement contemplates that an OPC might not have a supervised consumption service. And based on discussions we've had, that might come about, and I think I understand two ways. The first would be during the planning stages where the facility was coming online with some of the other services that'll be being offered prior to safe consumption coming online, and BCJR would want to have those in place before they went to that next step and had supervised consumption. But the second circumstance might be where we wouldn't have supervised consumption, if I'm understanding it right, would be to mitigate legal risk from federal action. And in that second circumstance, I'm wondering, as I think about it more, whether or not we would, because my understanding this will also operate as a syringe service provider, the OPC?
There's a requirement.
A requirement.
Yes.
So, and would we be operating as a syringe service provider but not having the safe or the supervised consumption component? It would feel a lot like Clark Street, at least with some additional services. And we've had a lot of issues at Clark Street, and we continue to have issues at Clark Street. And so just based on our experience, I haven't seen an ability to deal with the activity outside of the Clark Street facility effectively. And so we continue to get calls, we continue to get email. We see some of the behaviors and some of the sort of side effects of having that service there. So I have some concerns. I mean, one of the things we talked about when we the importance of bringing an OPC online was we were trying to get the consumption activity off the streets and out of the alleys and into a facility like the one that we've envisioned. So the prospect of not having that is a little concerning to me. So I just wanted to say that out loud and get it out for consideration. The other thing I wanted to say is, I know it's not germane to tonight's discussion, but certainly related is the zoning discussion we're eventually going to have, and I'm hoping we can address some of the concerns I expressed here tonight around the activity outside of the OPC through conditioning the use with having a safety and security plan. So I know we haven't had those, but I want to cue that up for my colleagues here, that I think that's something when we do have the zoning discussion that we should be talking about, because I do think it's a way to address some of the negative effects we've seen at Clark Street if we were to contemplate that ahead of time and have provisions in place. And lastly, I'll just say, because I think it's important, I still have deep reservations about citing any OPC in our downtown core, given the struggles that the business community has and some of the other activity that we have that, although it feels sometimes like we're turning a corner, other times it feels like we're just treading water. So I hate to add, more to that situation. And so I'm hoping that we will, as we look for sites, we seriously look at other options and bring other options forward in addition to any that might be in the downtown core. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. I actually would like to speak to your questions here. The first one on the OPC, the non-consumption versus the supervised consumption services. The first scenario, which is part of the intentional plan and strategy, right, is to begin with the non-consumption services. This is going to serve many, many different purposes, but I want to clarify that VCJR is not Clark Street. And the guidelines for the OPC to operate are very different from the guidelines for the SSP. I operated SSPs for many, many, many years. They have their own set of guidelines, but the OPC has its own set of guidelines as well. When we look at the types of training that staff are going to go through, the type of wraparound services that are going to be available there, they're very different from a syringe service program. It'll also have a very drop-in center, case management, medical services, recovery services, low barrier treatment embedded. So folks that are going to come here and utilize the services pre the consumption services, it really is another way to build relationship both with the participants who are going to be coming in, but also with the community. And so it gives VCJR an opportunity to do additional community outreach, public engagement, and really to show the community that they are their own agency and entity. Their staff have a very special way of building relationships, and we see that. We see them at Bank Street. They're serving the same population that Clark Street serves, but we're not seeing those same issues right outside of their building because they are a different entity. As far as the second piece of if consumption were to be stopped because of some kind of federal action, we're being guided to what other OPCs are doing, and that is that you could still have your ancillary services that folks really desperately need, and you could stop doing consumption while you're figuring things out. It wouldn't be a permanent stop, hopefully. And honestly, I hope that that just never happens. I'm a kind of an optimist, and I love that this hasn't happened to any of the three currently operating OPCs in the United States. But if it did, I think we can cross that bridge when it comes. In terms of security and safety planning, I just want to highlight in the operating guidelines, you will see that there is a very specific section on security and security planning, emergency planning. It's on page 7 is where it really starts. So number 15, 17, 18, 19, 20, these are all policies and procedures that are required, and they're really important. We also have a section on code of conduct for participants, which is on page 8, and you'll see number 30 through 33 talking about participant code of conduct, what that would look like, and even termination of participant services. These are really extensive policies and procedures that are going to be created, and they're not going to be created in a vacuum. The requirement is also that these policies and procedures be created in collaboration with community partners, with our public safety and emergency services and other community partners, also with people who have living and lived experience. So there's going to be a lot of things in place, and we already are talking with our law enforcement and Chief Curtin, and really everyone knows that we're going to be asking them to sit down at the table with us. So I really hope that helps you to feel a little bit more safe that we're going to be doing that work. And these are the policies that we're going to be creating while VCJR is providing the non-consumption services. So it's kind of like in tandem that these things would be happening. We can't open for consumption services until all of these guidelines have been met.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Councilor Bergman and then Councilor Schachter.
Well, first, I want to thank Vermonters for Criminal Justice Reform for the work that they're doing now and that they've been doing, and hopefully we will unanimously adopt this, and you'll be able to start to get paid to compensate you for work that you are doing right now on this project. And I want to thank Teresa for the work, not the least of which is being able to nimbly get into the weeds to deal with specific questions that people have and answer them directly, because they're important questions that people are asking and we need to be able to answer them, but we have the answers. And I want to thank you for that leadership. I want to thank the mayor and her team, and I won't list them all because then I'll use up all my 5 minutes for this, because we absolutely need this as part of our comprehensive approach to many of the issues that we're facing downtown. And again, we saw lots of letters talking about how wonderful things were this last weekend and how we have to continue that and how we have turned a corner. And if you don't think that this is part of that effort, then I think that we are not being really straightforward and honest. But because the fact of the matter is, this is a national problem that is not going to go away if we close our eyes, just like all of the particular issues that are raised will not be dealt with if we close our eyes to them. So I actually believe that we're making progress, but sometimes treading water is good enough, by the way. Like as somebody who almost drowned when he was 6, I believe in treading water sometimes just because it's absolutely necessary. And if I can get my computer to turn on, I just want to say the reason that this is so important is right in the contract on page 1 and 2. This is a program that's designed, I'm just going to read this, to attract, engage, and retain individuals with substance use disorders in a variety of harm reduction, substance use disorder treatment, and substance use disorder recovery, and other health and public health related services. We absolutely need that. So we see this every day. And the other thing which is really important about what we are trying to do here and why this community needs to have this is we have, as a city, said consistently that we recognize, and now I go to page 2, that the city recognizes that every human being has the right to life, liberty, and security of person, including those with substance use disorders. I mean, we are talking about people who live in our community, and they're human beings. When we lose the ability to empathize, when we lose the ability to deal with issues like they are worthy of life, then we are opening the door to atrocities that we see everywhere, all around the world. And I will not sicken us with having to list them, but they sicken me many times every single day. I am very proud that we are a community that is willing to take this on. And if I can just find it, the last point is that there's a recognition here, and we say it right on page 2, that recovery is a process that takes place over time. And we talk here about the ways that things go up and down. We have to understand that. and we are accepting that. So I want to thank you, and I really hope that we embrace this unanimously tonight. It's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Go to Councilor Schachter.
I just had a clarifying question, and I'm sorry if it's already been clarified. And also Teresa and the VCJR team, I should just start with a thank you. And I know we had a great conversation last week, and I always appreciate the chance to connect and talk things through and be on the same page. And so thank you really for all this work. I was just curious, as we move through this contract and talk about sort of an expansion of non-consumption services, can that happen in the current location? Like, where does the location sort of need fit into this? And apologies if this has sort of already been clarified, but it's not totally clear to me.
It hasn't been clarified yet, so, and I welcome the opportunity to kind of speak to this. I believe, and I'm so sorry I don't have the exact page number on this, but it does say somewhere in the project proposal that VCJR would need a new location. Their current office on Bank Street is small, and they do need to hire, I believe they're going to start with 3 new staff. They also have contractors, and it's not large enough to include embedding other services. So ideally, the non-consumption services will begin in a new location for VCJR. Those services, not only is it about the services, I just need to be clear that they're onboarding brand new staff to brand new services. And so experiential training is a really big part of this. But also, we all know that the work that we do across any social and human services is about relationships. This also gives their new staff an opportunity to begin to build relationships with their current clients, but also as new participants are coming in, they're building those relationships and they're expanding their existing services because they'll have a location that it allows for that. The capacity building component really is also about ensuring that as they're moving towards consumption services, there's a lot of things that the building itself is going to have. So there'll probably be some upfitting to the building and meeting requirements and working with the fire department specifically probably, and Bill with permitting and inspections. So that work will also be happening. Ideally, we don't know how this will work, but I think and VCJR can share, but the goal would be that they would then move into consumption services, working their way to that. And that just reminded me, Councilor Barlow, you mentioned zoning. So I had a really good meeting with Charles a couple of weeks ago. And so we're starting to better understand what that will mean. And it is on the list of things that we know would need to happen. So hopefully that helps to clarify.
Yeah, no, that's helpful to just sort of understand the map of like what we're approving and sort of the timeline, the contingencies of the pieces kind of all falling into place. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Schachter. Are there any other councilors that wish to be recognized? Councilor Singh?
Thank you. Thanks, Teresa, for honestly your availability to the council. It's been great as far as anytime I've had a question, you've been there to answer or take a call or even send an email on short notice today. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the work that everybody's doing. Councilor Schachter actually took the question that I was going to ask about in the contract where it said expansion of the non-consumption services, so I appreciate the answer on that. You know, I just wanted to highlight a couple things. I don't have prepared remarks, but, you know, as I think a lot of people in the community share reluctancy around the OPC, and I think Councilor Bergman, in quoting from the contract about attracting people who are, you know, have addiction problems, I think that's a large barrier that people see. I know there are plenty of people who are experiencing this disorder that are already here in Burlington, and we are experiencing this in real time. I think a lot of people are concerned that this would bring more of that here to the city. I would also, as far as a comment, we've worked hard on harm reduction in this city over the, coming out of the pandemic and the explosion of the opioid crisis. And we've seen the effects of harm reduction services in other ways and how it affects the community as a whole. I know there are a lot of assurances here that this harm reduction service will be different than what has been stood up in the past and the experiences we've had so far. I'm still very skeptical about that. I have a lot of skepticism, having, addiction go through my lived experience, not my personal lived experience, but understanding, what it takes somebody to get to recovery. So this is largely a comment, but I wanted to thank you for your work. I wanted to thank you for your availability, but I do have a lot of reluctance, and I know there's still a lot of process here, and what we're approving here is process and funds to go to that process. But, my skepticism is shared by a lot of people in this community, and we're gonna have to work through those things if this is gonna be, successful in bringing people to recovery. Because ultimately, that's the goal here, is to get people to those services. I think we're not doing a great job with it right now. So that's where a lot of my reluctance lies. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. I appreciate that. And I guess I just want to say also that syringe service programs have been operating in our state for over 30 years. And I was in a meeting, and Ann Pugh was in that same meeting with me about a month ago, and has been a strong advocate at the state legislature. And she made a comment wondering had she done the right thing all of these years, but 30 plus years of syringe service programs saving lives, slowing down infection rates, reducing them to almost zero, right? Like the work of the past 30 years, I think stands on its own. And yes, we as a nation, as a state, as a community have seen increases in homelessness and substance use disorder and all kinds of awful things since the pandemic. And that's impacted all programs, right? And so I just wanted to just kind of say, like, we can't throw away the baby with the bathwater kind of thing. And that for me as a person in recovery, I believe that recovery starts when you make a decision, your own decision, to do something that is going to help to keep you alive, keep you safer. That step might be walking into an OPC, it might be walking into a syringe service program, but that's the first step towards recovery. You have to you have to have some motivation, and that is a motivation. It's hard to walk into a place and not know anyone and have to say that you're a person that uses drugs, or have to say that you have a wound that is, really, really bad, or, whatever it might be. And so that is the start of recovery, in my opinion. And I just wanted to share that.
I appreciate that. I think another thing is the step is to say, I don't want to use today. And I think that's a harder statement in a lot of these people's situations, not just to say that I'm a drug addict, but I have to make this fight today. And to realize a lifelong fight starts today, and you don't want it to be a lifelong fight in your head. To rationalize, to take on that fight by being able to use I hate to say easier way. I think that makes that struggle in a lot of ways harder for people. But again, this is something that these are questions that I think people like yourself struggle with all the time. So I just wanted to come.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do not have any other counselors in the queue at the moment, or any other counselors that wish to be recognized on this item. All right. We will go to a vote then. All in favor of the motion made by Councilor Bergman, and to clarify, because there's 3 different sets of motion language on Civic Clerk, that is the updated motion language as of 8 p.m. this evening. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are any opposed? That carries unanimously. So thank you very much, Teresa.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
as
you
well
so
to
much.
our partners at VCJR.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us now to item 6.5. Again, this is an item that the Mayor's administration had presented on during a earlier work session. It is back now on our deliberative agenda, which is the City of Burlington 2026 legislative priorities. There is no recommended action listed on Civic Clerk. My understanding, though, Mayor, is that you are asking the council to endorse the priorities that have been posted on Civic Clerk, but would appreciate if you have any updates or introductions to the document as is posted today, and if you could provide some clarity in terms of the ask that you're making of this council, that would be helpful.
Of course. Thank you, President Travers. So there are very minor edits. We received a little bit of feedback, but not much from city councilors. We did this a work session a couple weeks ago in order to provide space and time. Thank you to those of you who provided some input. The things that are new or slightly edited in the memorandum that is posted, there was one tiny typo on page 1. There's actually, it should read the City of Burlington's top 4 legislative priorities for 2026. And then you'll see 4 items with some subcategories beneath them. To clarify, this is the section that we're asking folks to affirmatively endorse. This is a practice we did last year with the City Council. It was a new process for the city to develop a collective list of priorities, but that both council and the mayor could go forth to the State House and advocate under. I think it makes us speak with a stronger voice when we can collectively come up with what that shorter list of priorities are. And frankly, they are actually priorities when you have 4 and not 20. The other part of this document does include additional legislative initiatives or issues of interest that we're monitoring. This is a range of issues related to other items that the city has interest in, the administration has interest in, and in that sections on page 3 and then on page 4 are 2 small minor additions that come out of the tax fairness working group's recommendations. We discussed this a little bit when the Tax Fairness Working Group report came back now several weeks ago, and we shared that with council. So on the bottom of page 3 was added a short statement around increasing the maximum household income level for an individual to receive a tax credit on their property tax bill. Currently under state law, it's set at a very low $47,000 household figure. That is very different than the state education property tax credit, which is over $100,000, and it changes every so often in terms of how the education tax system works. The other item right after that we added was to review the renter credit program to better assist renters who earn a moderate incomes. This is a state program that is run. There were changes done a handful of years ago, but unfortunately when those changes were done, the focus was shifted to supporting very low income individuals who rent, and people were excluded who were right above those household incomes. And in Chittenden County, and specifically in Burlington, with so many renters in our community, we really should ask the legislature to continue to do this work, looking back at the renter credit program and understanding where perhaps in an unintended way, people were left out who could really use this benefit of a credit program related to the high rents that many folks in Burlington do pay. So those are 2 minor additions that were added, but there is, I don't believe, actually, sorry, there's one more. I have to read my own handwriting. And there's one more, sorry to go backwards, but we did add number 3 under the short list I was talking about before on page 2 at the request of a couple of counselors. It was originally on the second half of the document, but it was asked to be elevated to the short list, and that is to allow the city to use license plate reader technology for traffic enforcement. This is not only important for utilizing our existing officers more effectively, we discussed this briefly last time, but it's also strategically using technology, but there are a commitment to making sure we're doing safeguards to protect personal data in general, but data in particular related to folks who are vulnerable right now with what's happening on the federal level. So always with a conscious effort of making sure that we're protecting people's private data while, again, being smart around making sure that we have safer streets, because traffic enforcement is a significant issue, not only in Burlington, but as I mentioned last time, in many communities across Vermont, and I know other municipalities are interested in this policy idea as well. So with that, again, just to repeat our ask tonight, because we're meeting with the Burlington delegation for the state. These are state reps and senators, I believe on either December 9th or 10th, I can't remember exactly the date, but before your next council meeting, is to ask for your consideration of endorsing the top 4 items in this memo. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. While there's no recommended action listed on Civic Clerk, at the mayor's suggestion, I would welcome a motion at this time to endorse the top 4 legislative priorities as listed on the memo on Civic Clerk.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilor McKnight. Is there a second to that motion? Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Councilor McKnight, would you like the floor on this item? Okay. Is there any councilor that would like to speak to this item? Councilor Carpenter.
Not to this, but just refreshing my memory and ask that our lobbyists, things move fast in the legislature, things pop up all the time. Maybe it's perhaps through your regular reporting. I think it's important for us when new issues arise, not listed on this piece of paper, that we get informed of them. And I think we could do a little better in our communication from the lobbyist.
Of course, Councilor Carpenter, I agree, and we've given that feedback, and we will have some stronger communication this upcoming session.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Litwin.
Thank you. I just want to thank the mayor's office. This is a great list. And I also really appreciate her revisiting the tax, it used to be called the Renters Rebate Program. And when she was my legislator, she was one of the only people who would listen to me about how that was affecting people. So I thank you for that and the work that you did in the State House to try and make the changes that you did. I also really want to thank you for seeking additional funding for the water infrastructure. I wanted to reiterate for the public's benefit that, you know, I feel like Lake Champlain is such a shared resource beyond just Burlingtonians that we're trying to do our part, very expensive bond, and we could use any help we can to offset, you know, the bond payments and so forth. So I really appreciate any work that can be done there. And lastly, I wanted to just reiterate, and I wanted to thank your chief of staff for connecting with me offline, and she has agreed she's going to connect with Migrant Justice, who I had also reached out to about the license plate reader technology concerns that I expressed at the last meeting. They shared the same concerns, and so I think what can happen sometimes is these things can take a life of their own at the State House, and not every community is thinking as mindfully for folks who may be afraid of immigration enforcement activity or even just targeted for perceived immigration status. And so before we, you know, lobby too hard for that, I just want to make sure, and I know you're committed to that, so thank you. I'm really happy to vote yes on this list, and thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Councilor Litwin. Does any other councilor want to get in the queue on this item? All right, we will go to a vote then. Again, the motion is to endorse the top 4 legislative priorities as listed in the memo posted to Civic Clerk. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are any opposed? That is unanimous as well. That brings us now to our last deliberative item. This is an item that was moved from our consent to deliberative agenda regarding the designation of staff to issue municipal tickets, police. I will note that we appear to be joined online by Chief Burke. Chief, I appreciate your being here to the extent there are any questions. Councilor Grant, as Chair of the Public Safety Committee, I know that it has been your stated preference for public safety items to be on our deliberative agenda. This was moved from consent to deliberative at your request. Do you have any comments or questions on the item before we go to a motion?
If the chief would not mind just giving a brief explanation for council and members of the public with regards to what we're trying to do here.
Thank you, Councilor Grant. Chief, are you able to do that?
I can. I had a communication with Attorney McClanahan today on this issue, and this is an opinion or interpretation of the Vermont Rules of Civil Procedure in the court clerk's office, and the language that they contemplated is from the relevant civil procedure. The court administrator shall provide a form for municipalities to indicate those persons, as opposed to a group of employees, to issue municipal complaints under Title 24, and the language goes on. But again, the city attorney's office took the position that this is a bit of a lift for the city of Burlington because we have a vast array of employees that do issue municipal complaints to have to go through this process each and every time. But this is the direction that we've gotten from the court clerk's office, and we're simply complying with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Councilor Grant. Are there any councilors with questions or comments on this item before we ask for a motion? Councilor Carpenter?
Maybe at the bottom of our legislative list, somebody could bring this up, but, you know, it's a pain and it ought to not be there, but I would just, maybe somebody from the city attorney's office could throw that out to some legislator in our region as something they could look at changing.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Any other councilor wish to be recognized on this item? All right. Councilor Grant, would you be open to making a motion on the item, or would you prefer I turn to another councilor?
No, I'm happy to do it. The proposed motion is to approve the designation of CSO Ratna Polk as the municipal enforcement officer for the purposes of enforcing the Burlington City ordinances, authorizing CSO Polk to issue civil tickets for violations of the same, and to further authorize the Burlington Police Department to submit the attached designation form, so designating CSO Polk to the Vermont Judicial Bureau, subject to approval as to form by the City Attorney's Office.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Bergman. Seeing no other discussion on the item, we will go to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Are any opposed? That is unanimous. And again, Chief, appreciate your being here this evening, as well as thanks to Attorney McClanahan for her assistance with this item. That concludes our deliberative agenda. The next item is committee reports. Is there any councilor with a committee report? Councilor Bergman.
Yes, as I mentioned, Ordinance Committee is meeting this Friday, and we will be dealing with the unlawful entry into cars and the obstruction of sidewalks penalty ordinances that were just referred to us, as well as the parking ordinance change that we talked about earlier today, and a zoning amendment that is related to the South End Innovation District, or whatever it is that's necessary, and that we got on first reading and also warned for a public hearing. So those are the items that we have. We'll move back to the financial disclosure, and the intent for the UVM item will be to have that in at our meeting on January 15th. And when students are back, UVM has been notified, as well as other folks in the administration. Councilor Broderick got an email as well on that. So yeah, we're busy, but we are, we've got a great and dedicated group of counselors who is churning out without over glossing everything. So we actually are picking nits. It's what you want. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. Any other councilor with a committee report? Councilor Grant.
Thank you. I wanted to mention, as we just had a conversation about the overdose prevention center, just a reminder for the public in terms of education. When you go to the City of Burlington's website and you click the mayor's link under the government tab, which is in the upper left-hand corner. There is an option for overdose prevention center implementation. So this is a reminder that this is a dedicated page with information that's discussed in meetings, as well as information and links to the public forum that was held recently. So when you click on the Overdose Prevention Center implementation, you can click on News and Events, and there'll be a link to receive information to watch the public webinar. There's also a link to a page that has a summary of links for the various websites and other information about OPCs that were provided. I think I'm going to try for our next Public Safety Committee meeting, which will be in January, an OPC Mythbusters, because I think there just continues, as I said earlier, to be misinformation and disinformation. The OPC that we're trying to do is something new. We don't want to keep comparing it to other forms of harm reduction. It's the metaphor that we've used before, having another tool in the toolbox. We can't have some of these other agencies and services that we have. We can't have the expectation of them being able to allow use because use is not allowed. And that's a very different thing. Clark Street has had the problem it had because of multiple active drug houses. Two in particular, I think the Burlington Police Department for the actions that were taken. At the worst of what was going on Clark Street, it was due to the amount of dealing that was going on right around the corner on Grant Street. And residents of Grant Street will tell you that they had a horrific time with what was going on in that location. I would say that we can't, since people can't use in the building that houses a needle exchange, it's not the same as the OPC. So I would just like people to think about that and try to see what other education we can do in our Public Safety Committee about that, including information that we formerly used to provide in the ComStat meetings. Those were stopped. We have people on council that never saw those meetings. So what can we do to bring back some of that information to help, bust some of these myths that we keep coming up against? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grant. I'll ask if there's any other councilor with a committee report, and then we'll ask if there's any councilors who want to be recognized for general city affairs. Any additional committee reports? Okay. Is there any councilor that would like to be recognized on general city affairs? Councilor Singh.
Thanks. I just want to say I wasn't able to be at the tree lighting this last Friday for the first time in probably 20-some years. I was away. But I wanted to say, when I was on the Marketplace Commission and still now, a lot of thanks to go out to everybody that's been a sponsor of this event. Particularly Samantha McGinnis, the head of the Church Street Marketplace Commission. And, a lot of times we don't mention him, but Jim Daly and his crew, they're out there every morning sweeping the street, doing everything, making it the event that it is. And a lot of people don't see him and his crew behind the scenes, but he's been, on the marketplace for so long, and he knows the streets so well. He knows all the merchants, and it's just great to see that this event, so many people had a positive experience on Friday, and so many people are going out to support small businesses in Burlington. And again, I think that speaks so strongly about our community, and I think we'd be remiss not to recognize that. I also want to say on my way back home on the ferry, you know, all the cars were out-of-state plates. There wasn't Vermont plates, so that tells me people were coming this weekend to Burlington to shop, and that's really welcome news. So I want to tell everybody out there, please keep supporting your small businesses during this holiday season. Burlington has been amazing since the lights have gone up, and it's just been great to be down here. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Well said. Is there any other councillor that wishes to be recognized on general city affairs? Councillor Grant.
I just want to give a quick reminder that Giving Tuesday is coming up, and if we can think about all the various organizations that do, and that would also include mutual aid organizations that are helping people in our city during some really difficult times, that Giving Tuesday is a reminder if you're able to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Also well said. I cannot say it better than you and Councillor Singh, and so I will forego the City Council President Council updates, which means there's no further business on our agenda. So absent objection, I will adjourn our meeting at 9 p.m. Thank you very much.